Welcome back everyone to another Steel Division replay cast, and this time we're gonna have a 2v2 on Mont Ormel, which is the new map that was added, one of the two new maps that were added. The game is gonna be between two second French armored players, Baron von Voice and Mishkov. And on the enemy team we're gonna have a Luftlande player, Mikhail Zvostolov, and Parka playing the 21st Panzer. So we're gonna see both of the new divisions. And that's the Luftlande, I'm guessing. Yeah, opening with 4 AT guns. I'm guessing that all of these are 37mm, 3 AA pieces. Looks like 4 infantry and 2 leaders and 2 mortars. Interesting choice. Oh, he's got actually a lot more stuff over here. And then the 21st player is going with a pack 36 mounted on a vehicle, and then a couple of recon units and a couple of leader units, a lot more recon, and a couple of one Panzer 55 and one Panzer 4 for infantry support. And on the other side, we're gonna have Mishkov with a WC-52 with infantry. I'm guessing that that's the Nueve. No, wait. Can't be. Doesn't have the experience stars. Maybe, well, definitely a 50 cal, I'm guessing, was what this machine gun is. And the M20 with M20 transport vehicle. And also a couple of what I'm guessing are infantry units, normal ones. So more infantry, and then tons more infantry on the other side. But here we do have some Nueve infantry from the Spanish contingent, and we also have a Jeep with some recon. So let's start right off the bat, and we have both sides going up against each other. Looks like they will have some normal plans, although the Germans seem to be much more defensive in their start, and the French are trying to charge in and easily sort of overwhelm with their huge amounts of infantry in the early game. Of course, they do have more income, so if they do take losses, they will be able to replace them faster. And I'm pretty sure that, at least in Phase A, the French are going to have the advantage. We do see a smoke bomber coming in from Baron, and he had the smoke bomber is a pretty unique unit. It has 6 smoke bombs at its disposal, and it is indeed very, very dangerous, because it can just smoke up a whole line, a very, very long line, and then allow for infantry to push up undetected and unharmed. In fact, we do see the smoke coming in, and that completely neutralizes the 37mm packs and the LEIG support gun that Mikhail was trying to use. There's a bit of flanking fire coming in from this forest, but so far it looks like the Nueve infantry is just going to disembark right in the middle of the German defenses in the midst of the smoke. We also have the Jeep that unloaded its Sapahis and is now trying to spot around, but it gets taken out by Pack 36. And right now, through the smoke, here comes the half-tracks. Half-tracks being completely unharmed by the huge spam of Pack 36s that Mikhail had went for. He was hoping that the packs would have at least observe the impact of the half tracks, but thanks to the smoke barrage, then the French units are just pushing on straight through, and both, well, actually only Mikhail is sending in some reinforcements to try to stop this push before it gets too dangerous. At this point, I think this Panzer 4C from Parka should have been called on the right side. He does call up Panzer 35S, a Samua, on this side, but that's not as useful against infantry as the Panzer 4. And infantry is pretty much all that this push is, and so I think that a Panzer IV on this end would have definitely helped out greatly, because the weakness of something like this is that it doesn't really have any long-range AT, and it's prone to get surrounded. For example, if right now one of these Ersatztruppen were to walk through here along with this one, they would be able to surround this whole push, and none of these units are airborne, so they're going to be taking much more morale damage when they are surrounded. And in general, you could make them surrender a little bit easier. Von Boyce is calling in for Artie on the LEIG. If possible, yeah, possibly. Here comes 2 Jeeps with mortars being called in by his ally, so definitely some coordination going on there. And right now, finally, a few units of reinforcements are coming in from Baron von Boyce, and I absolutely love what he's doing. He's bringing in the infantry and pushing along with it, and then in the rear, he's coming in with support weapons to hold the line in the rear. He has 2 machine guns, 1 AT gun, and 1 mortar, which are going to definitely help in holding the positions that he has captured. Of course, he does have a couple of leader units, which are absolutely key to something like this, because he wants his units to keep their morale completely once they are indeed surrounded. And here comes the Panzer 35S, which is exactly what Baron von Boyce doesn't really want to see so far up the line, because his AT gun is still coming in from the rear, and the Panzer 35S so far doesn't really have a counter among the units that he does have. A couple of the command units, the Voltigeur captains, do have bazookas, and in fact, very lucky, the Voltigeur captain actually nails the Panzer 35 with its first round on a pretty much maximum range. The bazooka has 200 meters range, and that was pretty much at the tip of that, and that's very, very lucky. Very lucky for Baron von Boyce, although that doesn't really detract from the fact that so far he has been really, really playing his cards well. Here comes the 7.62 millimeter machine gun, so it's actually a 30 cal, not a 50 cal. I was expecting a 50 cal out of him, but it looks like he's going to be valuing the cheaper 30 cal. So far, there's also a very nice push coming in from the Assault Pioneers of Mishkov. Looks like he is actually mixing in the Assault Pioneers with flamethrowers, so the flamethrowers with less men in it, just to maybe confuse his opponent. It definitely worked, as it destroyed a Panzer IV that was spraying a little bit too close to those flamethrowers. Remember, in this game, flamethrowers do take out tanks. Here comes the first bomber, a Stuka. One of those light bomb Stuka is definitely quite useful against enemy infantry. We'll see whether or not it does any substantial damage. It does indeed. It takes out one of the pioneers and also the leader. Actually, it doesn't really take out one of the pioneers, but it does take out the leader, which means that these units are now panicked. And if he were to follow up with the Panzergrenadiers that are over here, he would be able to make these pioneers surrender. Here's also comes a ME-109 with the rockets, the light rockets, and it doesn't really do anything, it would seem. We have a M8A1 Scott carrier, also taking out quite a lot of Ersatztruppen. Really, the main weakness of Mikhail Zvezdalov is that he's going with way too many Ersatztruppen. These units aren't really all that useful, in my opinion. If he had a strong core of a couple of Fallschirmjägers around here, he would have been able to repulse this push a little bit easier than if he didn't have any. Of course, he didn't have any, and he kind of paid the price. All of his units were completely taken off guard. He was relying way too much on the support weapons to hold the line, and then once they were rendered useless by the smoke bomber, then he wasn't really able to recover at all, because he just had these very weak units that don't really have any way to defeat enemy vehicles, so the half-tracks took him completely by surprise and destroyed him. And that was kind of a shame, because the Luftland is supposed to do really well in Phase A, and the Fallschirmjägers are pretty much an integral part of that. You get quite a lot of them. You get, I believe, 8 overall if you get 2 cards of them. They're quite expensive, sure, but they are very, very good. For example, the Nueve are very good units, but they're also very expensive. They're, in fact, more expensive than the Fallschirmjägers. So if you can use the Fallschirmjägers well in the early game to stiffen up your Ersatztruppen and your support weapons, then you're going to do much, much better than if you don't with the Luftland. That's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about when they say that the Luftland is bad, is that they have probably one of the best infantry units in the game, and that they can use those quite effectively. Right now, here comes the weakness of the Luftland. When you're getting spammed by armor, even though this isn't really a spam, there's like a couple of M8 recon units, which is 85 pointer, and then the M5A1 tank, which is a 85 pointer as well. So not a lot of points being invested. Well, quite a few points being invested there, but not too many. At this point, the Luftland has some problems, because their main vehicle in Phase A is this Panzer 39 Hotchkiss, and it isn't really all that good. Here comes another Stuka bombing run, destroying the Pioneers, but at the same time, there's a Spitfire trying to take out the Stuka, but it runs out of fuel and is forced to retreat. the meantime, Parka isn't really doing anything when he could be trying to do some aggressive pushing on the left side of the map, because he is the 21st Panzer, so his strength is open field fighting, absolutely. Whereas, of course, his opponent is a 2nd French Armor Division, so up until Phase B, there isn't really all that much that the French are going to be able to do, save the Phase A M10, which he does have. Mishkov does have one of those Phase A M10s. But other than that, there is absolutely no substantial AT on this side of the map. So if Parka were to rush in with a couple of tanks, I don't really think there would be much, especially if the pack over here, the big pack, were to support the push and try to snipe out the M10. There wouldn't really be much that Mishkov could be able to do against that, because most of his forces are on the forest side of things. Understandably so, since he does have some Nueve in his deck, and then the flamethrower infantry, very, very strong in the forests. And also supported by a couple of mortars, definitely really good for taking out enemy infantry. And then, of course, Parka is kind of playing into that and spending most of his points on the Panzergrenadiers to try to contest the forest instead of trying to go around the forest where he is strong. It's just kind of something that doesn't really click with me too much. At the same time, on the right side, looks like the push from Baron has been stifled a little bit. We do have a couple of Pack 37 vehicles coming in, and a couple of Pack 37s probably from Mikhail. And here comes the bomber again. Now he knows that there's a Pack 37mm in this area of the map. Wait. Oh, okay, so I see what he's doing. He's trying to smoke out this area and then push through with the infantry, maybe? No. What is he trying to do with this smoke bomber? Maybe bait in the fighters and then call in his own fighters? Looks like he's going to drop, finally, on this area. So the area he was originally looking at. Interesting. Why wouldn't he just do that on the first run? I think that the bomber bugged or something. And in fact, this is excellent because it does prevent the MG42, or actually MG34, from firing at enemy units that are trying to push up, especially something like this Nueve. Although I am pretty certain that, yeah, the Nueve are going to be in the line of sight because the smoke is slightly to the left of the building. Here comes a couple of German airstrikes, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that much because they're really being used piecemeal. Oh, as I say that, it takes out a mortar, so that's pretty decent. But this Spitfire is definitely taking out at least one of these ME-109s. If it's managed correctly, and it isn't, looks like it might be able to find... Yeah, it is going to kill one of the ME-109s. So, despite a bit of a mismanagement on the Spitfire, it's going to be able to kill one of the... No, it actually isn't. And now it's in trouble because there's an ME-109 with an experience level. But that's also doing some weird maneuvers and is going to allow Spitfire to escape. In fact, there might even be some new allied fighters approaching once the ME-109 overextends. Who knows? There is a GMC Bofors from Baron von Boyce, which definitely stuns and sort of forces to flee the enemy vehicle or aircraft earlier than I would have expected. That was a lot of panic coming in from only one AA unit. Still, the armored push from Baron von Boyce at Phase B is going to be doing some damage. Of course, that's very focused on anti-vehicle with the M10 tank destroyer. The M10 does have a few HE rounds, but they aren't all that good. They're pretty decent at 4 high explosive value. Their problem is the fact that they really lack the ammo capacity to continue firing at enemy infantry and support weapons. With only 10 rounds, it's really going to be reliant on you getting supply vehicles up to the front for that infantry support role of the M10 to be important. Of course, there's also a machine gun, but again, only has 300 rounds of ammunition, so it is going to be running out very quickly. Very good job with the support of Mishkov pushing up against the MG34. Also, a couple of sapeurs are being brought up by Mishkov with M5 half-tracks, which are going to try to push up against the enemy troops in this area. Finally, we do see a Vielfachwerfer from Parka. That's a mouthful. And that should have been one of his earlier purchases, I think, against the French Armor Division. He knows that the French Armor Division has some really quality infantry. So having something like the Vielfachwerfer, which has Katyusha rockets in it that can stun up enemy infantry quite well, if not do a lot of damage and at least stun. Here comes an artillery barrage from the Schwimmwagen 210mm. Interesting choice in Phase B. This is a Phase A unit. You would think that he could have made use of that earlier when he was getting pushed at by a lot of enemy infantry. It isn't really that expensive. I think it's like 130. Yeah, 130. Looks like it's gonna also try to fire on the enemy armor. It is gonna destroy most likely this 57mm AT gun, but this isn't a very effective target. This would be a much more effective target. Looks like also a Panzer IV G has been called in by Parka to try to at least push back some of these units in the center of the map. Panzer IV G is an interesting unit. It only costs about 130 and has a really, really good level of experience on it. 2 stars, in fact. Zvezdolov finally had enough and surrenders, and I think that's going to prompt the surrender of his teammate as well. Interesting little push with the smoke bombs. I really enjoyed that. That is one of the units that I'm kind of looking forward to trying out as well for the French. They are pretty interesting in their use, and they can, as Baron I think showed quite well, they could kind of be one of those wild cards that you do not necessarily expect, but then can actually do a lot, despite not actually featuring on the kill list for anything. They're just one of those units that actually impact the game quite a lot, and I definitely enjoyed that unit being used. So I want to thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the Steel Division Replicast. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you soon.